what do you call it?
Didn't see it then.
That's the thing about that.
We're good.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of the meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designated the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using an electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record, and we request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name, address directly to the microphone. The recording device will be so utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for preparation of minutes and shall be official record of the Township Council meeting.
Mr. Hutchison,
He is running late.
Mrs. Stokes, present. Mrs. Winters,
Here.
Mr. Vignani,
Here.
Mrs. Trotter, here. Mr. Mercado,
Present.
Carlinger,
Here.
Mr. Cardis,
Here.
Mr. Lexler,
Here.
Chief Harkins,
Here.
Mr. Chadwell.
Here.
We have a resolution to go into closed session on a labor matter that will probably take less than 10 minutes. So we have resolution 2009-208. I entertain a motion to approve that resolution for closed session.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Thank you. On the question, roll call please.
Mrs. Stokes, Mrs. Winters,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Mrs. Trotter,
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
Yes, we'll be back in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah. How are you? Hi, how are you?
Hey,
For me, I have to be early.
I got that, thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Now I got that.
Yeah.
Additional things. Do you know, are there any or expectations for having police at polling stations, drop boxes?
So this is going to be a main area. We're going to not be in the polling area. We will be patrolling polling areas. Every election, and this one especially because it seems to be contested, we send out a review of election laws. Election, we work with Nancy, the clerk. But we will not be in. We don't want any, I don't want any appearance of police involved in anything. What my concerns are is people that are going to be confused about how the voting process works, and then the electioneers calling the police. And we don't get involved with the election, we're not getting
Are
involved.
there gonna be like trained, because I called the board of elections for the county and they said that they have like deputies stationed.
As my understanding, they will, and that'd probably be best asked Nancy Power, the clerk. She's the main liaison with the election.
Okay.
We stay out of it. The only other time where we have police officers in the vicinity is when they're using the polling places in schools. And our school resource officer, or even some of these special officers that are stationed so that they're at a point where someone can't enter the school to protect the kids. That's really but this year, I'm told that the election is, the schools are closed, so we won't be in there. That's one of our manpower planning things, to make sure.
Okay. And do you have a plan for in terms of how to respond if people show up claiming poll monitors?
So what we do, first, what we do is we consult with the clerk,
Okay.
who And then she has direct communication, direct line with Board of Elections. That's the only other time you may see an officer. We actually have one of our special officers drive the clerk around to check the polling places.
Okay.
With the consolidation, it'll even be less here because they're consolidating, I think, into eight locations. We have the box that's out here, right out here. I just bought it. I just checked it myself about the cameras. We have good camera views, and you'll see we're going to put even a camera trailer that's separated from this power, the system, the security system that we have in the building. It's independent, so it's a fail-safe. We want to keep an eye on that's going to go up right when the box opens.
And if anybody is like hanging around, will they be asked to leave?
Correct. We actually take tape measures to meet it, and we follow the guidance of Nancy, who's the clerk. We will walk out and tape measure and tell them how far they have to stay away. We've had to do that in some local elections in the past. We're always prepared to do that. So, but we want it to be, we don't want to be there. We don't want to interfere with the process. But we plan, this one's contentious, so we're absolutely, we're starting, quite honestly, these in elections, we may do this 3 days before and have a conversation ready because it's that little, but this one we've already talked about the issue with the election boxes and stuff like that. One of the decisions even to keep minimal interference and interaction. We're getting to the point where the municipal building is going to open, the mayor's going to decide to open the building. But the decision was made to wait until, I think it's the day or 2 days after the election happens. So they don't have interference. Public coming in, and someone claiming that they're here for another reason and maybe interfering, plus with COVID and things like that, and we're going to disinfect the whole building. Yeah, that's our plan. So
Okay, great.
if you think of anything else, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that occurred is that, like, if officers do need to show up, is that we can wear t-shirts instead of like.
Yeah, that's hard because honestly, we don't normally, well, we may have some plain clothes officers that are going, depending on the type of power gets called into us. If it's called in that there's somebody's acting crazy or arguing, then it's going to be the first officers to get there. Okay? Yeah, thank you for dropping that off.
Yes, no problem.
They sent me the plan, my plan I wanted to design. I guess it was under the impression that it was all under one. And they emailed me and they're like, oh, we want to talk to CES or they already got estimates for CES, just so my correspondent and all the certifications and that's my numbers. And I said to you, have to be broken up into the four phases. One for each. We're gonna do it that way, so add the bonds, if you want to post the bonds, the other scenario is you post the bonds for everything, and I'll sign these right now. That's what I was on. I didn't know you
Here.
The auditors are there.
I said, 3 weeks ago, oh my God. Normal sleeve, normal shirt. I was like, oh my God. I didn't even have anything in the car, because it was fair, it wasn't cold out yet. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Go ahead. Right now.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I know. We went out Saturday night, we were on, and the sun went down, I was like, uh-oh, but it was actually pretty good, I was surprised. We went to, Harbor View, yeah, the inside's closed still, but the outside, they had a huge bar. So the food was good. Yeah, they never have it opened again, I'm surprised. Yeah. Whatever you want.
Madam Clerk, have the roll call again, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Mrs. Stubbs? Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mignano?
Here.
Mrs. Strada?
She went to the restroom, she'll be back.
Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Mr. Lechner?
Here.
Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Chadwell?
So our closed session was regarding a settlement issue, a labor issue with an individual that used to work for the MUA. Before we go to the public portion, Scott Owens submitted a resignation letter to me on September 18th. He has moved out of our township, he and his family. So therefore, there is an opening on council. Mr. Owens was part of the Democratic Party, the Gloucester Township Democratic County Committee, has 15 days to submit 3 names to council, and then council has then 15 days to fill that spot. So the clock started on September 18th. Mr. Carver, is there anything else to add? We wish Scott and his family well. Scott lived in the township for a long time, and we'll miss him and his son coming here and his family as well. So we wish him the best. We'll now open up the first public portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. The speaker is allocated 3 minutes. There's a total of 15 minutes for the first public portion. Anyone like to speak on any agenda items? Seeing Mr. Crew.
Evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood. Was interested in resolution 214 and 216. For 214, could it be explained what the 19,350 is going towards for the special line item of revenue?
I'm glad you brought that up because we have to, that's to be amended, the dollar amount. There's $2 amounts. Nancy on it. There's 11,900 for hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant. And then it says 19,350.
emergency preparedness. It's the I'm sorry, yeah, it's a training grant through the Ray Evans got for training. It's mostly for the fire department personnel through being managed through the emergency management.
So that's our Office of Office of Emergency Management. That's inserted into our budget. The figure is $19,350. Is that correct? Because we have two figures on this resolution.
I don't have I'm going by the resolution, 19,000.
Okay.
I'm looking at it, from the CFO.
At least the copy online had the two numbers, I remember,
Yeah, there's two.
11,000 and the 19.
Can you stop that clock over? Thank you, Teresa. If we can't get the number before we get to the agenda, we may hold that off on that. Okay, your next resolution, sir?
216, was hoping, same question, what the 116, 662 clean community grants, what that was going towards.
That goes to Public Works. If you see our folks that are working on the weekends, litter patrol, it provides staffing, salaries, part of our litter patrol. Anything else, Mr. Cardis, for clean
No,
community?
some towns use it to buy equipment, we don't, we use it for actual salaries and wages for labor stations.
Okay, perfect. Resolution 219, this was with regard to a shared services agreement between our township and several others. Specifically, it looks like Cherry Hill was in charge of drafting the solid waste collection agreement. Based on my understanding, we're removing ourselves from Cherry Hill being the coordinator there. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, we have to because Cherry Hill is automated and they liked their bid, so they awarded their bid. We, on the other hand, did not like our bid at all, and we reject that bid. So we're going to go back out along with Pine Hill and Clementon to include automation in our bid specs and see what kind of numbers we get. For some reason, I don't understand, but the public did not bid on any waste management projects, and Waste didn't bid in on any Republic projects. So you can fill the blanks.
When you say automated, what do you mean by that?
That would be the containers that the way you're recycling is dealt with right now.
Oh,
Those types of trucks.
Gotcha. Okay, appreciate that. I was interested, these shared service agreements, I noticed there was another one for computer paper and envelope. Does the police department also use shared service agreements or shared contracts, maybe with other police departments or with the township? I ask that because we have a bond ordinance this evening where we're bonding about $500,000 for supplies there.
In the past, I recall we've done some shared service agreements. I think when we first got our license recognition,
Yeah,
Right.
software readers, that's correct.
and that's where we entered into an agreement with several municipalities.
But these are not. These are
No.
ones that are-
No, not tonight. No, they're not.
Okay. Is that something we could utilize more often, you think, in cases like what we're talking about, printers, ink, paper, body cams, tasers? I'm sure all police departments potentially need that type of equipment.
Well, I think that's something that we can, contemplate and think about and have a discussion with the chief about with this.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, let's go to the first public portion. Proclamation, National Hispanic Heritage Month. I'll get to it in a second. Proclamation, whereas the greatness of America can be measured by the collective contributions of our past and present citizens, and the future of America will be measured by our most valuable assets, our shared culture, history, knowledge, and sense of community. And whereas in this month's theme, Hispanics be proud of your past and embrace the future, we recognize the contributions made and the important presence of Hispanic and Latino Americans to the United States and celebrate their heritage and culture. And whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month, whose observance began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Johnson, was expanded by President Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period and was enacted into law on August 17, 1988. And whereas the term Hispanic or Latino refers to Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin regardless of race. Today, 57.5 million people, 18% of the American population, are of Hispanic or Latino origin. This represents a significant increase from 20,000, which registered the Hispanic population at 35.3 million, or 13% of the U.S. population. Whereas America has also drawn its strength from its contribution of a diverse people, and throughout our nation, Hispanics are advancing our economy, improving our communities, and bettering our country. During National Hispanic Heritage Month, let's all renew our commitments to ensuring ours remain a society where the talents and potential of all its members can be fully utilized. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, David R. Mayor of Township of Gloucester, and I, Orlando Mercado, President of Council, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month in the Township of Gloucester as a special annual tribute to promote the celebrating of generations of Hispanic and Latino Americans who have positively influenced and enriched our nation and society. Normally, we have a Hispanic Heritage Month program on the second meeting of our month in September. We're not having it this year due to COVID and the pandemic. We hope to resume all of our activities next year, commencing with Black History Month celebration, Women's History Month, and Hispanic Heritage Month. Nancy's that memo?
From Chief Harkins, I'm requesting to hire Alyssa Morello as a Class 1 Special Law Enforcement Officer upon successful completion of the medical and psychological testing. She already possesses UTC certification as a Special Law Enforcement Officer Class 1, and I would like her to join the SLEO recruit is currently being trained for agency training at the beginning of October.
You need anything from us on that? Or that's
No.
just this memo?
Just not-
Thank you, Chief. Next is our ordinance. There will be a second reading and a public hearing. Ordinance 0-20-11, bond ordinance authorizing the acquisition of various pieces of capital equipment for the police department in the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, appropriating the sum of $475,805. Therefore, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, in the aggregate principal amount of up to $453,147, making certain determinations and covenants and authorizing certain related actions in connections with the foregoing. This is a capital project or program for the acquisition of various equipment such as for the police department, but not limited to tasers, dispatch equipment, commuter equipment, and the necessary materials and equipment to make all that work necessary. We'll now open up the public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Mr. Heimdall. Before you speak, there is no time limit on the public portion for this hearing, but I do ask that all our speakers be cognizant that there may be other people that wish to speak and be mindful of their time. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Pete Heimdall, Morningstar Court. First, I want to wish best wishes to the Owens family as they move on to bigger and better things, hopefully. And also, I did submit some questions in advance to Mr. Carvis and CFO Eric, and they did respond. And that's part of what I want to address in my comments now. CFO Eric relayed that there's a $526,000 cash balance right now in the capital fund. And it seems to me that would be enough. That's enough cash to cover this bond ordinance without the need to do any further borrowing or create a new bond ordinance. Is that, am I mistaken with that?
Tom, you have that dollar amount, is that?
Yeah, 526 is what's in there. I don't know if that's tied in. Remember that we had a large capital budget in 2019. I think it was between $6 and $7 million. I don't know if any of that is still for outstanding projects that have not been completed at this point. But I will tell you, if there was money left in there, I would not recommend to use it because, again, we're in uncertain times right now. We don't know what we're going to be facing. And that would be a place where we would be able to take money out for an emergency. So I would not be comfortable taking that.
So the capital fund, the cash in the
I
capital.
want to remind you that
Yes.
we're not, we have the ability to borrow $4 million right now. We're borrowing less than $500,000.
Right. So the cash in the capital fund is available for other uses
I do
in
not
an
know that.
emergency?
I do not know that. I don't know whether she has.
No, I mean, is available for emergency uses, what you
If
just
there's
said.
money left over that has not been committed to projects that were listed in prior capital budget, then it would be available and we would be able to use it.
Yeah.
And Mr. Carter, am I correct in saying that this is the only capital budget we're seeing for this year?
This is absolutely new capital budget.
Well, that's good, but still, if we have the cash on hand to pay these police equipment acquisitions, why would you? I still don't understand why we're going more. We did borrow 10 million in a TAN to handle potential emergencies that come up, so that's available. So I'm just suggesting we have the cash to cover this, the capital fund cash to cover this police equipment purchase, and therefore we shouldn't have to do this bond ordinance and borrow further money. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Cruz?
Evening again, council.
Please.
We learned during the first reading, which was the last council meeting, that as far as at least the tasers and the on-person cameras for the police force, that they're in good working order, that they're maintained well, and that conceivably they don't need to be replaced at this time because they are sufficient in protecting our police force and our citizens. We also found out that there was more to this bond than just those things. There's also apparently some printers and some Microsoft licenses. I'm terribly familiar with Microsoft licensing, and Microsoft makes it very clear when the licenses are up and when maintenance is ending. So it would come as no surprise, it would be no emergency to budget in Microsoft licenses into our standard appropriations. That being said, I think the printers, the ink and paper and other things, maybe we could enter into one of these shared service agreements that we spoke about a little bit earlier. So I don't know if that's all the things on there, but those are at least the things that were communicated. And one can be budgeted, one doesn't seem very necessary, and the other seems as though we have a more efficient way of doing it without taking a bond. And I'll read you the last line of section 10 of this bond ordinance, which is a little bit disturbing to me. The township shall levy, according to value, taxes on all taxable real property without limitation as to rate or amount for payment thereof. That's what we're signing up for. No limit as to the rate of taxation to pay this bond. I don't see a reason for it. I would ask you to consider the suggestions and come up with an alternative instead of voting yes this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Sweet?
Good evening, Council. Sam Sweet from Ariel.
Good evening, Sam.
To reiterate, we have $526,000 in the capital project that you don't know if it's earmarked for anything else.
There's cash of $526,000.
But it may be earmarked for a project that hasn't been completed.
Very well could be, yes.
But we don't know that.
We don't.
Okay. But we also have a pilot program when the budget was 2.5 million roughly, which you only budgeted 2 million for. So we under budgeted that money coming in from the pilot program by 500,000, which would also cover this, correct?
No, it would not. You're mixing the capital and the general fund.
Okay, but
Two separate things.
But if we have that money coming in from the pilot program,
Two separate things.
okay, but it's $500,000 difference, so can't we use that as well?
I did not recommend that to the mayor. I did not recommend that to the council.
Why not?
Because I didn't want to take that much out because I knew this was the last year of the outlets coming in. And at that was gonna significantly hurt us next year, and that was not a smart move to take it. I told you that before. I was very specific and very clear at the meeting.
Okay, but it would prevent us from borrowing, would it not?
I disagree. I disagree.
No, if we took the 500,000, would it prevent us from borrowing?
No, it would not. No, it would not.
So we would, how does that not prevent us from borrowing?
You're talking about the general fund versus the capital fund. We're funding these projects exactly the way we're supposed to be funding. They have a useful life over 5 years. They meet the requirements of local bond law, and that's why we're financing them through the issuance of a bond.
But again, you keep saying we can do this, and I'm not saying that we can't. I'm saying we shouldn't. There's a difference. We shouldn't continue to borrow, especially if we have the means. We have potentially 526,000 that I think you should have looked into to see if it is earmarked for someplace else. We have under budgeted the pilot program by $500,000. We have $1 million on a Nike base sale that I know realize we can't recognize until the sale's gone through, but that sale has been sitting here forever, so why aren't we trying to push it through? What's going on with that? I just don't see, just because we can borrow and it meets the requirements doesn't mean that we should borrow, because we're constantly borrowing. And the fact that, I'm glad to hear that this is the only borrowing that we're doing this year for capital budgets, but you said we could have borrowed $4 million, we could have done more. Why are we constantly borrowing? And here's council, this is an exact, we have $2 million, not going to say at our disposal, but you should have been able to say, well, that 526 is earmarked for this project, not, I'm not sure. Because I wouldn't want to borrow and keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. And I think as council, you guys have said countless amount of times that, you're one of us and you feel the pain with us. But when we borrow, that means our debt service goes up, and our debt service goes up, so do our taxes. And tax bills went out, and people are complaining. And yes, I realize, Mr. Hutchinson, that it's only $25 a person, a quarter, but it's still $25. That's someone's grocery bills. So I would advise council not to approve this bond, not because of it's because of the borrowing, not because of what's being bought, but because of the borrowing, find another way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I entertain a motion to adopt.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Chief, before I vote on this, I want to ask one question. Mr. Krug brought up an issue or a question. Are we going out and trying to find cooperative pricing agreements with other police departments for the purchase of things that are subject to this bond order?
So whenever we can, we will. We are always looking to get the most bang for our buck. We use state contracting, which often gives us the best pricing. Even that, with them, we could try to go get bids and prices and stuff. So yes, the answer, Councilman, is yes. Anytime that we can, we are trying to collaborate to get the best price we can on anything that we purchase.
One more follow-up, I apologize, Mr. President, this is out of order in any way. Mr. Krug also brought up the potential that some of the equipment that we're replacing doesn't need to be replaced, and I just want to make sure, is that the case?
So it doesn't really work when the program that we have that this is paying for, the biggest expense through the Axon is the data storage. The police department of 134 officers generates tremendous amounts of data that is stored on the cloud through Axon Taser Company. Along with that, our police car cameras are continuously being upgraded. They're being upgraded as we speak as part of this program. The camera systems that we have, these things fly off, they break, and they're replaced as all part of this. It's called the Officer Safety Program. Same thing with the tasers that provides us with the equipment that upgrades, like they recently upgraded the taser. So if an officer draws the taser out and activates it, the camera automatically goes on if the officer has not turned on. It's Bluetooth capable. So those are the types of things, and this was, again, part of a 5-year program, this officer safety program. So equipment is consistently, I don't think those cameras last 2 years of regular use out on the street, but with this program, we get another one.
Great, thank you. I'll vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Crew, for your question.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Veneta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strata?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Our next ordinance is 0-20-12, ordinance amending Chapter 79 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester, entitled Gloucester Township Towing Ordinance. This is some housekeeping on this ordinance to make sure that anyone who's doing business with us, the towing operators, are in compliance with our ordinance, and then making sure that they are in line with their business activities and functions. This is open to a public hearing. I'll open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, close the public hearing. I entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Veneta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strata?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes, before we go to the consent agenda, Mr. Karsh, you have a number for me on resolution 214, the correct number?
Yes, 19,350, I believe.
The 11,900.
19,350.
That's it.
11,900
Yeah,
is correct.
right, that's it.
And Mr. President, that is a grant that we obtained from the U.S. Department of Transportation, being administered by the New Jersey State Police Emergency Management. It is a non-matching grant that all those funds went to all 6 districts, fire departments for hazardous materials training.
Thank you, Chief. So let the record reflect that resolution 214, we amended to have the correct amount of $19,350. So I entertain the motion to accept the consent agenda with that change as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Veneta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strata?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We have one GTE Gov access email. From Kenneth Bookser from 47 Rain Tree Drive, Sickledale, New Jersey. It's more of a statement. Why are you raising our taxes, which already are high in the middle of a pandemic, so oversized police can buy more toys? And everybody get a raise on the people dying. I'm reading it verbatim, sorry. Shame on you liberals. We hit the times when wrong is right. Thank you, Mr. Bookser. With that, I'll open up the second public portion. This is a 30-minute time period. Each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes apiece. Once everyone has finished speaking, if someone wants to speak again, they may, after everyone has spoken first time if they want to. Not entertain a motion. I'll open up the public portion. Ms. Coyne.
Denise Coyne, Choose Landing Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. I sent a list of questions in e.gov. You did not get them?
I was presented with 2 emails, 3, 2 already answered already, and then I received this one. Ms. Parent, did you receive any GTE Gov access emails?
Where did you send them and what time?
4 o'clock?
Did GT clerk?
No, I sent them on the website for the e.gov. I filled out the form.
You can ask the questions here, and we'll try, and if we're able to answer those questions tomorrow, we will. But you can ask your questions here.
Can I hand them to you because my glasses fog up? I can't see them.
Okay, sure. Appreciate that.
I sent them in at like 4 o'clock.
What's the cutoff time, Ms. Bauer?
That's
e.gov. The cutoff is 7 o'clock.
Yes.
Was the email address incorrect?
I'll read it. I previously asked if the township zoning map can be updated and posted on the township's website. Please provide an update. I'll speak to Mr. Lechner. That's a project you and I are going to work on, having the zoning map perhaps posted on the website, if possible.
The zoning map is on the township's website?
Updated.
Well, we're waiting for a couple of the zoning matters to clear, so we only have to change the zoning map one time.
How difficult is it to put on the website? Because if it's not that difficult,
No, it's there. It's regarding an update.
can we put an asterisk on the website indicating that a couple things are pending?
Well, we have to get a proposal from Remington and Vernon to do the update of the zoning map. But I was waiting till there's one item possibly that the ordinance was introduced, the planning board hasn't heard it yet, and I was gonna make all 3 changes at one time and do one map amendment. We could do 2 map amendments. We could do the ones that have already been done. And it doesn't matter, I just gonna do it at one time.
Okay. Next question. A number of planning board meetings have been canceled recently due to not having a quorum. Why is there a person on the board who has attended only one meeting in the past 3+ years? I was not aware that who this individual is. I'll speak to Mr. Lechner, is considered the planning board secretary. I'll grab this individual's attendance, whether it's he or she, and speak to Mr. Lechner and the mayor regarding that. Has a decision been made regarding which nonprofit agencies will be using the recently purchased EMS building on Taylor Avenue? No, to my knowledge. Mr. Cardis?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you. I saw that Lita will be building on lots 12 through 15, block 12402. These lots are included in the redevelopment study for the villages of Gloucester. Does this have any impact on the redevelopment study that T&M Associates is doing or has done? Mr. Lechner, could you answer that?
I'm not performing that study, so I'd have to
aware.
defer to T&M Associates,
Okay.
however, it may have some impact.
Okay. Are they aware that Lidl is building on those lots?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And this question, has Lidl applied for a tax abatement? Not to my knowledge. Any abatements go before council to approve, but I'm not aware if they've applied for any tax abatement. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during the public portion that has not spoken already? I'm just trying to make it equitable, okay? So we'll go with Mr. Sweet in the back.
Sam Sweet from Ariel. I also sent in an eGov question. I sent mine in about 1:15. So,
They don't go to me. They go
no, I didn't say that. I just said I sent it in about 1:15 using the same system. Filled out the form, sent it in. You guys didn't get it, obviously.
I apologize, I did check it several times.
Okay.
Prior to coming down to the
I
meeting.
think the email address on the prior one was incorrect. You said e.gov.
This on the top of her page, it says e.gov,
And what's the correct?
e.gov.
No dot.
No, but I went to the actual form that when you go to the live council meetings and scroll down, there's a form that says eGov questions.
And a notification.
And I've done it before that way and you guys have gotten them.
Nancy, do you know if they've received a receipt that confirms that?
I don't think so,
No.
Maybe
No
that's
receipt.
something we could look into. Your question.
Okay, Gloucester Township received $493,000 to help with, it's from the urban and housing development.
CDBG money, yes.
Yes, what's the plan for that money? The eGov question is, what's the plan for that money? What's the criteria for applying? Who's overseeing it? And who do they report to?
So there was a couple of rounds, this is the second round of the CARES Act, and I just have some notes here. Third round. The second round was $180,000 that was targeted for four uses. The Camden County Women's Center, Gloucester Township Housing Authority, a small business assistance program, which has not been set up and is not running yet. And then planning administration. So that was $180,000, $180,120. This round 3 is $493,426. It was based on potential eviction and foreclosure rate formulas. It's a rental and mortgage assistance program. Some of the guidance we are still waiting to receive from HUD, how this can be used. When Mr. Carson and I were talking about this recently, he said something that HUD may say this is not for back rent, but for future rent, which doesn't make any sense to me. I think this is a way for people to catch up, but I would imagine this is for residential homes, not commercial. So that guidance and what's permitted on it as far as expenditures has not been provided to the township yet.
Okay, who's going to oversee this?
I have no idea at this time.
Okay, when will we know this, and will their announcement be made?
I'm not aware of when an announcement will be. We know we have the award of $493,000.
All right,
But once I assure you, I think we do a pretty good job when it comes to putting information out via social media and on our website, that will be made available to our residents to view.
all right, and Camden County was awarded $2.1 million. How much of that is allocated to Gloucester Township? Or is it, or they, like, how does that work?
2.1,
I think that's their money. Ours is 493, 426.
So Gloucester Township can't get a portion of that 2.1 million, that's separate?
I think that's going to Camden, for Camden.
No, Camden County. Camden City is getting 758,000.
I can't speak to that. I don't know what Camden.
Camden County is getting 2.1 million according to the research. So since Gloucester Township's in Camden County, does Gloucester Township get a portion of that, or is that something separate? Is that something people would call the freeholder?
I can inquire. No, I can get back to you on that.
All right. Those are my ego questions. My other question is filling the vacancy of Scott Owens. How does that work again?
So because he was a Democrat, the Gloucester Township Democratic County Committee will submit 3 names to the governing body or council. They have to submit that within 15 days of his resignation. At that time, we have 15 days to fill the spot from those 3 names and have someone sworn in and seated up here.
And how would somebody get their name to the Democratic County Committee?
They would reach out to them.
Okay. And Scott Owens was up for re-election next year?
Next year, yes.
So it would just be filling the seat to the end of his term?
Yes, it's the end of the term, and if that person elects to run with individuals next year, that person will run next year.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? Oh, let's go, Mr. Crew.
Evening once again, council.
Good evening. That's a nice jacket, Mr. Crew. I like that.
Thank you, appreciate that. In response to Ms. Coyne's question regarding the analysis done by T&M Associates of the village at Gloucester Township, Mr. Lechner responded that he wasn't involved in that. T&M Associates would need to speak to that matter. I have in the past requested from council and council president that Triad Associates and or TM Associates be present at these meetings or at a meeting to speak to some of the topics that the citizens are concerned about, including some topics I've brought up, which is the redevelopment of Blackwood West. I would resubmit that respectfully with the hope that this time maybe that could come to fruition. In addition, I heard Council President bring up $180,000, part of which would be going to small business support during this difficult time. And Mr. Hutchison, maybe you saw the bad news over the weekend, but Shana has pulled out from on-premise dining and will only be doing external catering. So it's a terrible loss. Ms. Strato, I know you have a relationship there as well. Unfortunately, between Revolution Barbershop, which had its issues with, and Mr. Lechner, I apologize for saying the zoning department the last time I was up here. It's the construction division, which is underneath zoning, which I found out a lot more about, is under the Division of Consumer Affairs with the state. And, apparently these guys are cemented in. And what I hear, we can't get rid of them. Although everyone I speak to seems to resound that that's what needs to happen. I would ask council to evaluate that because, in private industry, at least for me, my employer can let me go at any time, and that's just the way it is. If these guys are causing small business men and women not to come to our township because of a poor attitude, which is what I've heard, I realize there's two sides to the coin, and potentially not assisting small business owners in understanding what's involved in coming into business in this township, then that's a real problem. I understand you may be handcuffed with the state, but we got to do what we got to do for the success of this township. And with Shayna now not going to be operating, we're actually moving backwards in downtown Blackwood, which is very disheartening for me. I guess I will ask the question, Mr. Lechner, has there been any update from T&M Associates on the Blackwood West redevelopment side of the house?
Yes, we had a Zoom meeting with T&M Associates and the mayor and establishing a steering committee moving forward with Blackwood West redevelopment.
Can you explain what that would include?
The actual plan?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the plan is basically in draft right at this moment. And we did include Shanna, a couple of business owners in town in the steering committee, T&M Associates from the economic development, T&M, Triad Associates, the business owners, Shanna's Wild Fig, and the owner of Mystic Ginger. The educational perspective, we asked the president of Camden County College and the two representatives from Maine State Center for the Arts on the actual steering committee and the mayor, of course. So once we get a little bit farther on, it's not easy to explain at a council meeting, but once we get a little bit farther on, we'll be able to present something. And then they will come to the township meeting to present their plan, because that's part of their proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Lechner.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ken. Would council be interested, I know I am, in hearing this plan more in a draft status before it reaches final completion and it's just kind of sat in our laps and it's too late to make any changes? I know Mr. Hutchison has been downtown, maybe has some ideas that could be contributed. I had emailed the administration to be a part of the type of group that Mr. Lechner explained. I guess I was left out. That's okay. But I certainly would be interested in hearing it in more of a draft fashion for potential changes or suggestions, improvements.
I think we can inquire to have an update.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, Council President.
We are trying to get it to a point where maybe it could be approved by the end of the year. So there is some light there. What do you think? We are trying to. I don't think anything will get on the work session for October, but hopefully for the November work session.
Okay. Thank you.
To give you some idea on the timeline.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Council. All right. Thank you for your time, Council.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Heimbach.
Pete Heimbach, Morning Star Court again. My comments are going to be related to the the cash flow, the Gloucester Township's cash flow statement that was produced couple of months ago. This cash flow statement kind of paints a dire financial picture for the township, and it's mostly has nothing related to pandemic. It's mostly looks structural from my view of it. The cash flow statement shows that during 2020, we're going to spend $10 million more than we bring in. And I don't, based on what the numbers I'm looking at, maybe $2 million of that's related to pandemic, shortfalls related to pandemic, although we are scheduled to get all the full financial aid now based on what New Jersey seems to be ready, the state aid, based on what New Jersey's ready to pass for its 9-month budget. And for the first 3 quarters, we do seem to have received there's been no shortfall in property tax receipts through the first 3 quarters of this township. So I'm seeing a dire financial picture on this cash flow statement. And it's odd, I don't see much changing in 2021 based on these numbers. We get the tax rates will kick in for the full year, the higher tax rates, which will help some on the revenue side. But on the expenditure side, it's going to be roughly the same, if not more, with the different union contracts and such, but roughly the same as what we saw this year. So I see next year, I don't see anything structurally that says we're not going to have a cash shortfall next year and the year after going forward, unless something is in the works that I'm not aware of, the public isn't aware of, and I'd like to hear what council and the administration has in mind to alleviate this cash outflow that we're looking at every month. Is there anything in the works?
Well, when you say that it's a dire picture,
Yeah.
And I just asked Mr. Cardis if he agrees with your assessment here, because sometimes your lens is very different than what Mr. Cardis's lens is when he states.
These are his statements. And
no,
$10 million cash. Yes. Okay.
I know Mr. Hardball is against the 10 million that was borrowed.
No.
Mr. Heinball.
At the time that we made the decision to pass the resolution and to move forward with $10 million on the TANs, it was based on an analysis by the CFO. And at the time, there were a lot of uncertainty. There was uncertainty about the collection of property taxes. There was uncertainty about state aid. And those were big numbers. You're talking state aid, $5.3 million. Mr. Highball is looking at his magic globe and saying, we should have known that we were going to collect taxes. We should have known that we were going to get our state aid. I don't see how you can say that. At the time of our decision, there was uncertainty with all of that. And I've said this before in meetings to you.
Mr. Cardis, I'm not even talking about the TAN. Let's take the TAN and put it way off to the side. I'm not even talking about the TAN.
We very well may have a cash flow problem. You're right. We very well may. I don't know.
You mean next year, in future years?
Yeah.
What would we do at that point?
I don't know. But if there's certainty with regard to the state aid and certainty with regard to the ability to collect taxes, I don't believe that we would be taken out of the can.
But even with full state aid and full tax collection, based on this cash flow statement I'm looking at, there's going to be a shortfall this year and next year. And
we have been, in past years, we've been able to make up for that shortfall. So
yeah, that's what I'm asking. How would we anticipating making up for a shortfall?
Sometimes we hold back on the school payments for the taxes. That's significant. That's about $6 million. We delay that until we start collecting money for the August quarter.
Just delay payments to the school.
Correct.
But that's just kind of shifting the problem. The revenue and expenditure, the cash flow problem, that's kind of shifting it.
We dealt with it every year in the past. This is the first time we've ever issued tax anticipation notice based on a projection of a possible major shortage of revenue because of uncertainty. And I've said this before.
It's just an assumption that we collect next year. We collect there's no shortfall in the tax collection. We collect the same state aid as we have been over all the years. We should? Yeah.
I believe we should be fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ironball. Is there anyone else? Ms. Coyne?
He's going to choose any room. I'm not an accountant, but it seems to me if we are spending more money than what we're taking in every year, wouldn't not bonding help that problem? Not borrowing?
You're looking at an analysis that was done again with uncertainty.
All right, not even looking at this, just making a statement. If we're
I
spending more
don't
money
agree
than
with
what
you.
we're taking in.
I think we need the bond. I think we have infrastructure issues. We don't normally put together a $2 million street budget. We normally do about 1.5 million in drainage. We normally purchase about anywhere from $500 to $1 million in equipment, including vehicles, including recycling trucks, including packers. So no, I don't agree with you because those things are going to be needed as the older equipment gets out of date and is no longer working.
Okay, but
That's it. That's my-
I'm thinking as a resident with, say my household budget, if I'm constantly spending more money than I'm taking in, and I try to borrow money, nobody's even going to give me a loan because that's a ridiculous concept.
I answered your question.
Okay, I understand you answered my question, but it's not making sense.
I'm sorry. Answer the question.
Okay, but it is a true statement that we are spending more than we're taking in.
I don't know that. I know what you're looking at right there is a document that was prepared with the anticipation that we may not collect state aid and we may not be able to collect taxes. That was the issue.
Okay,
That's the document you have, and that's what you're looking at.
but as the business administrator, you can't state whether or not we pay out more than what we take in on a yearly basis.
No, we're supposed to have a balanced budget, but the budget has revenues in it that equate to the expenses.
But I'm not talking about what we're supposed to do. I'm asking about what happens.
I don't know that what you're saying is correct.
So
know
how
what
would
you're
somebody
using,
find
you're
that
using-
out?
You're using a document that was prepared.
I'm not using this.
Well,
He was
you're standing there holding it.
referencing this. I was looking at it while he was speaking. And it occurred to me that it appears that we're spending more money than what we're taking in.
I don't believe that's the
Which is
case.
why I asked the question,
I don't believe
because
that's
I'm
the
not
case.
using this as fact. I'm
No.
asking you.
I do not believe that's the case, because if that was the case, then we would have over expenditures of appropriation, which would cause us to have deferred charges in the following year, and we don't have it.
So is there any way to look at a budget as a resident, the township budget, and see for myself what we spend and how much we take in for a certain a period of time?
Absolutely, it's in the audit. It's in every audit. It's in the annual financial statement, unaudited also.
Okay, so that's either a plus or minus figure, so how is that a
No,
hard
we have
question
to
to answer?
finish- We have to finish with a balanced budget. We must, that's why we do transfers at year end. We must have every single appropriation accounted for. We cannot have any over expenditures of any appropriation as it relates to the state budget document. That's why we do, that's why we do the transfers.
All right.
And then that money, whatever is left over at year end, goes into a reserve account and runs for the rest of the succeeding year. And the reason is because bills are going to continue to come in, such as utility bills, which we haven't received yet, other bills that come in after the close of the business on December 31st.
Is the reserve money in these figures? It is it not?
But I don't know that. I don't know
I
that.
believe it is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coyne. Anyone else would like to speak? Mr. Sweet? Mr. Sweet will be the last speaker.
Good evening, Sam Street from Ariel again.
Good evening.
Mr. Cardis, you stated certainty in collection of payroll, real estate taxes, correct?
That's correct.
Is there a schedule made of how the real estate taxes are paid by, my real estate taxes are paid by my mortgage company, right? If I don't pay my mortgage, my mortgage company is still paying my real estate taxes in,
That's correct.
okay? Is there a schedule someplace somebody has of, hey, there's I'm gonna make this number up, 40,000 taxpayers that are paying for these taxes, and 30,000 are, the mortgage is paying for their taxes. 5,000 are paying for them, on their own, and another 5,000, or, some sort of schedule like that.
Absolutely, it's in the, it's with the tax code.
Okay, so with that schedule then, could you not, if the mortgages are gonna continue to pay the taxes, especially during the pandemic, there's gonna be no shortage there, because mortgage companies are gonna continue to pay.
We did not know that. We didn't know whether the state would step in and extend the due date. We didn't know what the state was going to do.
No, I'm not talking state, I'm talking mortgage companies, whether it be Bank of America, Carrington, TD Bank. The mortgage companies, they have the money in escrow, and
Yes, but
they've
if-
gone
but
negative escrow.
Yes, but if there's an extension on the due date that's set by the state, which they can do, then those mortgage companies do not have to make those payments on a timely basis. They would get the extension also. Why would
Okay.
they not? Why would they not? Why would they not hold that cash?
Well,
I
but,
certainly would if I knew the due date was adjusted.
all right, but at the time, there was no talk of extending the due dates. Well, there was a little bit of talk, but not for the first half.
I disagree with you. There was talk about everything going on. State aid being withheld, changes to the interest rates we charge on taxes that are not collected. You remember that discussion?
Mhm.
And who knew whether the state was going to step in and extend the due date? We did not know.
All right, and,
Uncertainty. I keep saying uncertainty, and you keep coming up and you keep saying, well, you should have known.
I'm not saying you should have known, but I'm saying that there's schedules out there that you could have made valid assumptions instead of saying uncertainty. Because-
Saying I should make assumptions. I should not make assumptions like that.
As
At
this,
the risk of the township? No,
yes,
that's.
yes, it's called an educated
Oh,
assumption.
it's called an
okay.
educated guess is what it's called.
All right, fine,
We
call it an
disagree.
educated
Let's
guess.
just say we disagree. We disagree. I disagree with you.
All right,
Not
but
going to convince me any different. I disagree. Thank you.
well, getting back to that though, can I get a breakdown of who pays what in their not who pays what in their taxes, but how the taxes are paid?
Yeah, you submit it over and the tax collector will provide it.
Mr. Cars, I remember when we had this discussion, we had concern about real estate, property taxes being paid. And you would think that, and I don't know the correct percentage, that maybe a majority would have their taxes paid out of their mortgage. And it was
I don't remember the numbers.
but it was
I don't want to state them that.
I know, but it was something that I thought that I'm looking like maybe 80% of our residents pay their
Oh,
taxes
no,
out of
that's
mortgage.
higher.
And it's far lower than that. But maybe you could provide that. But there's people who do not pay their taxes.
I realize that, but that's what,
No, a large amount of our
okay,
residents do.
do we have a breakdown of age, because of the majority of those people, age, yes, because the majority of those
Just our
people,
residents?
okay, what I'm getting
No, we
at,
wouldn't have that.
okay,
Age.
because what I was getting at was that if you're living on a fixed income, those people were not affected by the pandemic. If they're getting Social Security and there's 401ks, the distributions, they're not being affected this year by the pandemic, so they would be making their tax payments as well. The people that were affected for the taxes would be the people that pay their taxes directly, that lost their jobs, that don't live on a fixed income, don't have money coming in, whether it be retirement income, 401k, or brokerage accounts.
So again, we're discounting what I said before, which is that we did not know if the state was going to step in and extend the due date. And that's why that we made the decision to go after the fans, because of uncertainty with the collection of taxes and uncertainty with the collection of state aid. I keep saying, you keep drifting away from it.
I'm not drifting away from it. I understand the uncertainty, but I don't think that based on that, and that is the schedule you prepared.
Your assumption assumes that we're going to be able to collect taxes on time.
And we did,
That's right, but we did not know that at the time.
but how quickly can we get a TAM?
Very quick.
So if we can get a TAM very quickly, why wouldn't we wait till the last possible minute to get that TAM and see if the money came in?
We felt that at that time, because we had.
But it could be done.
We had a shortfall of money. We could not take the chance that we were going to be shorted in August. And we couldn't take the chance we'd be shorted in our state aid that it was the right time to put the tan out and to get.
How quickly could we get the tan?
I think it was a matter of a week.
So you couldn't have held out
No,
until,
No,
you couldn't have held out, or you chose not to hold out?
you would like, in hindsight, you would like me to have held out, but no. At the
I would
time-
like not to borrow,
at the time-
because again, we'll go back to the same argument that we always have, Mr. Cardis, of whether we should or whether we can. I mean,
And we did.
and I understand that, but I'm just saying again that we shouldn't, and council at some point, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that's gotta stop, because taxes keep going up. Other townships don't borrow as much as we do, and I realize other townships, you can't shake your head when I make that statement, because it is true. Other townships don't borrow as much as we do.
You checked that out.
Yes, I have.
You have facts?
Yes.
You have-
I'll get them to you,
Okay,
but,
it's comparably-
okay.
comparably sized.
So-
Mr. Sweet, do you have anything else? Your time is up.
Thank you, sir.
No.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's the end of the second public portion. Polling of directors.
Mr. Carlemere?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Lefner?
Nothing to report.
Chief Harkins?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Chadwell? Mr. Hutchison?
I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. The questions, although sometimes they may be a bit painful to address, need to be asked. And hopefully we can get some guidance from the questions and move in the directions that need to be moved in. Thank you again for coming out.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Please drive them safe.
Mrs. Winters?
I want to thank everyone for coming out and their comments, and remind everyone that COVID is still out there. It is increasing pretty much across the country, and it is increasing in our area. Gloucester County is on the rise. I'm not so sure about Camden County at this exact time, but please be safe and protect yourself. You're the only one who can do it.
Mr. Mignon?
Everyone, please be safe going home. Thank you.
Mrs. Chadha?
Thank you for coming out. Have a good night.
Mr. McConnell?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Once again, wish my best to Scott Owens and his family. Remind individuals that if you have not filled out your census information, in fact, they've extended that. I don't have the exact date, but it has been extended. And also, you're going to start seeing that ballots are going to be mailed out, I think, this week. So be on the lookout for ballots for the November election. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Have a great evening, everyone.